What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Innovation by the Cup. We're bringing you innovation one cup at a time. This week, we've got another innovation war story for you with Dr Kast, doctor out at Dyess Air Force Base. Dr. Kast, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Dr Kast, I'm a crew chief. I've been in the Air Force for 24 years. I've worked on a variety of different airframes, from C-141s to C-17s to the mighty C-130 Hercules, and a bunch of different variants on that aircraft. And now I'm currently overseeing the maintenance for the B-1B. Over my 24 years, I've bounced all over the Air Force. I had a pretty interesting career so far. Along the way, I managed to obtain a doctorate in business psychology to help me understand human behavior when it comes to organizational change or strategic positioning within organizations or within the world.
That's a lot. That's a lot to unpack right there. 24 years in, doctor, AMXS, mentor of mine. I would like, I don't know if you tell other people that, but I tell people that. So, so over that time frame, you come to this space. This is we like think we're different. We know we're not. We're probably a new cycle of things. We're on the fringe of the new buzz. How'd you really find yourself? I guess I know a little bit, but even prelude to us interacting with each other, how'd you find yourself into this space, and like what drew you to it? What keeps you around?
Really, the airman is what kept me around. There's an old adage I always go by that someone told me years and years ago, that was, when you leave, make sure it's better than when you got there. And that's kind of been my mantra pushing forward. Was I need to make sure it's better. I need to make sure it's where that the airmen have control. They can do what they need to, and they're prepared to take over as the next generation of leaders within the Air Force. So as my generation is exiting out, who's going to run it, right? We got to make sure everybody's got the tool sets they need and the equipment they need and the empowerment they need to really step up and fill the void that's being created right now. And then kind of getting into this space, I've been around through the ASO21 era, when we converted it to CPI, and how it was, oh, we got to change things. We got to make it faster, more effective, get rid of the waste. Hey, that was all great. We ran that through the Air Force really thoroughly. I walked into, when I was stationed at Pope, our CTK changed once every month on how they laid it out, just trying different designs to make it faster and easier. However, we used it too much, and ASO21 became this word that we cringed when we heard, or CPI was like, no, get away, get away. It's like the total quality management era. Everybody said TQM. We're like, no, go away. We don't want you. And then there for a while, there was nothing to help us get better, to help improve what we got going around us. And then I ran into these two crazy guys sitting in a closet in a building, just randomly throwing out ideas and doing things. And I was like, how are you doing this? And I was intrigued. And it was actually, I was working on trying to get a project done, is how I ran into these two crazy guys. And they were crazy enough to fund my project and help me get it installed. And it's installed to this day. And it's just a simple little project. And we saved airmen about 5 minutes a day of their own time. But that little savings compounds over the years. So that's what is driving me, is making things better and making sure that the airmen are ready.
Yeah. So what are you doing now? Like, what are you kind of leading in the innovation space, and what kind of projects you got going on, stuff like that now?
So, as I alluded to, those two crazy guys in that back room office or closet, however you want to, phrase it, I latched onto them and kind of been through a wild journey over the past almost 18 months now, going around teaching people how to get into the space, how to leverage the resources outside of the Air Force to get these, to innovate, to make changes, to I guess just make changes.
Yeah.
And it's to empower them, to say, hey, it's okay to go out and question the status quo, because the status quo is only going to kill us. We're going to make it slower. It's going to, we're going to start we're just going to walk around with red tape one day if we keep the status quo. And we're just going to put red tape on everything because, Well, that's what the status quo does.
Yeah.
And I think as we move through the space, like Dr. Kast and I are always strong believers in, it's not for everybody. We're still a machine. The machine needs to function. That 80% of the force is going to do what they need to do, and that's good. The difference approach, I think that we've looked at it, is a select few, and we're going to try and take that 10% of the folks and try and push them. We don't know where that 10% lies, like in a hierarchical stance, but maybe as majority standpoint, like we don't need everybody. We just need a couple to make it function. But recently, you kind of found a linchpin. You're a superintendent. You run how operations go through a squadron, but you saw LIMFAC. And could you kind of maybe peel back on a project like that was more near and dear to your heart and something that you, in your time frame, right? You have a scope that people just don't have. What did you go and solve, and what are you trying to implement, and like how many bases are trying to assist you with this, and what is growing towards that?
So one of the things I've struggled and I've noticed over the past 10 years, about 10 years or so, that we as a force, our NCO tier, our airman tier, our senior NCO tier, we suck at talking to each other. We don't have the soft skills necessary to deal with a variety of situations that come up, or to even sit down and have a conversation to get to know each other. It's very different from when I initially entered the military. We treated each other like family when I was in. We would, if I had a problem, I'd go up to that person. I'd say, "Hey, look here, I don't like this, and I'm starting to not like you." And we would talk through it. A lot of times we were yelling at each other, shouting. Maybe it was buzzed heads, but at the end of the day, we went and cracked beers and we had a good old time. We knew how to talk to each other. My NCOs actually took the time to sit down and get to know you. And if you had an issue, they're like, "Okay, here's how I can help." Or, "I can't help, but here, let's go talk to this person." We're missing that nowadays. Our NCOs are too fearful to engage in conversations. They don't know how to. They say they don't understand the airmen. Well, you're 22 and they're 19. How do you not understand them? But it's odd. So as we dug into this problem more, the real problem is the airmen and the NCOs don't trust each other. They don't talk. The NCOs are not taking care of the airmen, and the airmen are not taking care of the NCOs. And that's
Super cool.
It has impacts on so many different levels when that occurs. Because now, as a superintendent or a flight chief or a first sergeant or a commander, my paperwork processes are going to go through the roof, because now I got to deal with the administration side of these people not talking. It creates more problems than what it solves. So we just need to get back to the point where NCOs are not scared to just talk. Where we give them the skills, the understanding of self-awareness, how to walk up to an airman who looks like they're just having a horrible day and say, "Hey, airman, how are you doing today?" And not get the canned response of, "Oh, I'm good. Okay, bye." No, we want them to actually sit down with you. You may be saying you're good, but I can see it on your face. Something's happening here. What's going on? And really dive into these issues. And maybe at the end of the day, we can help someone have a better day, be more productive, do less stupid stuff off duty, and maybe it'll impact the overall mental well-being of our airmen. And
I think I have some insight on this project, and one thing I really like about it, for anybody who's watching right now, is their intention is to bring people in and teach them soft skills, but have them fail, which is one of the coolest things I've ever thought of. Like, you can have these conversations where we're paralyzed by choice, we're paralyzed by data. Go into a conversation, you never want to be the linchpin of, why did this come out bad? Why did that airman take that turn? Why did something happen in the squadron? Am I at fault for this? But they're going to go through these, and they're going to make them fail in situations. They're going to try their very best, and it's still going to have a terrible, terrible outcome. So I really like that. I'll kick it over to Brad for maybe a follow-up.
So I was just curious, can you dive in a little bit more about what you're trying to put together here, the project itself?
Yeah, so the project is called NCO Communication Workshop. We still got to work on the name. We got to make sure it's broadly applied. However, it's to, like Cap had alluded to, if we bring them in, we bring in NCOs. We're targeting staff sergeants with less than 3 years time and grade as the initial population to train. It's 5 days, fully experiential. We do nothing but fish bowls the entire week. where we put two people in the center of the room. One's the actor, one's the supervisor. And we are throwing the tough scenarios at them. A lot of stuff, coming from my personal experience over the years of what I had to encounter. And I'm like, wow, I got to actually talk to somebody about this. Okay, let's go. And we're going to throw them into these situations. And the very first one they're going to be thrown at is, and we're kind of borrowing from Star Trek, we call it the Kobayashi Maru scenario. It is a no-win scenario. And they're going to go into it. They're going to think, oh, I'm really good at talking. Their ego is going to be pumped up a little bit. And we're going to level the playing field out across all of it, right out the gate. We're going to say, yeah, you may be good, but you're not as good as you think you are. And here's how we're going to get you better. And we don't expect, and at the end of the 5 days, they're going to go through another similar situation. But the goal is to see if they do better, if they can navigate it better. There is no win, because in this space, we don't win. We are effective.
Mm-hmm.
And the company that we're working with right now is an excellent company. They are very engaged. I've been spreading this idea via LinkedIn and got a lot of bites across the Air Force. Everybody is saying, how do I get involved? How do I get this? Right now we are up to 11 wings that want this project. And so I'm bringing them all into the loop. I'm bringing them for the journey. And by the end of July, we'll have a full course package ready to go. And trying to work on how to send this company out to those other bases to train them how to run it. And this course is not going to be ran by some civilian in a suit. It will be ran by us. The intent is we train facilitators, and then we drum up that senior NCO corps to get out there and take care of our people. That's the biggest piece.
Yeah,
I love that you hit on it. The infinite versus the finite mindset. Everybody thinks that we're going to come in here and spike the football, if you will, and call it a day. When in actuality, we need to project a lot longer, push towards the next day. If we have an idea in our minds that there's going to be an end to this, you'll be burnt out. There is no end. You gotta kind of throttle. You gotta throttle back a little bit sometimes. So I really I like your take on it. I like it a lot. What do you think, Brad? It's good. It's cool stuff.
Oh, I think it's good. I think it's got a lot of potential, right? I think it's perfect how you started with something kind of grassroots and they're starting to scale it. And that's really what we do in the innovation space. We find a problem, we go after it, we start small, and then we figure out how to scale it. And you got to drive that interest. And that sounds like what you guys are doing. So you've obviously got a lot of experience, a lot of time in, a lot of education in your background, right? So if you were to have an airman come up to you and you were to just talk to them about getting into the innovation space and things like that, what kind of advice would you give them?
Go for it. And I've been fortunate enough to see that over the past couple of years. They don't outright say they want to do this stuff. They don't want to change, make wide scale changes. These airmen are coming up like, hey, why do we do this way? I'm like, do you know a better way to do it? Because we'll do it. I pushed them. I encouraged them to challenge the status quo. There's been many times I've been walking around the aircraft and like, if we just had this one thing, it would make this job 20 minutes faster. It's like, okay, go talk to this guy and let's go. Let's get this done. I encourage them. I want them to challenge the status quo, because if we don't challenge that status quo of, hey, this is how we do things. No, the book says we must do it this way. Well, guess what? The book says you got to do this, but it doesn't say you can't do this.
Yeah.
So the airmen will come up and they'll say things, and I encourage them and I push them in the right direction. But then I also step back and I look for those ones who has that potential.
Mm-hmm.
The potential factor is much more important than anything else. And I'll watch. And if I see it, I push them. I start guiding them, say, hey, have you ever thought about going and taking a course in this? Have you ever thought about going and talking to these people? Have you ever thought about applying for this? Yeah, that's the only thing we can do. We have to encourage them. So I don't have kids, but I kind of imagine it is similar to that, right? You have a kid who starts showing an interest in something. You have to give them space to explore that interest, and you have to give them that protection. I have no problem standing in front of the bullets if they're willing to go out there and try something new. I'll give them the support, I'll give them the backing, and I'll give them the shield. I'm at the point in my career to where I can afford to do that. I don't have to worry about the next thing for me, because I don't care about me. I care about them and care about what we do as a whole. And if we don't start doing this, and start innovating, whether it's policies, procedures, or product, because innovation is not just products. Innovation can be just how we do things, a new way of doing things with what we currently have. That's innovation. But if we don't get really ingraining this mindset and finding those people on the fringes of our Air Force society, our Air Force culture, we're never going to get this movement going. And if we don't, it's going to have long-term effects whenever we have to go to basically start fighting a pure adversary. Because let's face it, we're getting to the point where we no longer have near peers, where we now have peers. And that's going to become a problem. Because we rely on dominating the airspace and dominating the ground space with all of our forces. But if we don't have the technology, the rapid, agile mindset to move and adapt as we fight a war, we're sunk. And that's
where's this flag? Change his background. Where's the wavy flag? I want the fireworks. I want him standing up there with the stripes on. This is our man. This is the man of the future. This is the man of the now, and he knows what's going on. Yep. So to wrap it up, we always like to ask, so 2030, things are going to change. Things should look different than they do now. I know for you, 2030 specifically is going to be very different. You're kind of on your way out of the Air Force, very talented individual. You're obviously very understanding of what's going on and what needs to happen. So 2 cents, what does 2030 look like for the Air Force? In your opinion, where would you want them to be? What would your perfect dream state of what it would look like? Whether innovation is even still around, new aircraft, what mind you, what 2030 looks like to you for the Air Force?
So for the Air Force, I kind of envision, 2030 being this, coming back and visiting and just seeing everything changed. I walk onto a base, I see a 3D or I see an additive manufacturing R&D lab. I walk out to the flight line, and these guys are going out there and they're actually talking. They're coming up together as a team to like, hey, this is how we're going to attack this, and we're going to move forward. And anybody can say, hey, hold up. Why are we doing it this way? I see the status quo gone. I see us being a nimble, agile force.
Yeah. And I think we'll get there, right? And I think with enabling our airmen and creating that environment, like you said, a psychologically safe environment, I think we can get there. That we can allow airmen to experiment, to do different things, to try different things. And that's where we need to go, I think, is just empowering our airmen is what you were talking about, giving them the psychological safety they need to try new things and go from there. So everybody, thanks for joining in today. Dr. Kast, thanks for talking with us. And you heard it here, right? You can, for all those listening in, you can start small, grassroots, and scale it. And just find a need, go after it, find a solution, and then see if other people need it. Make it bigger, make it bigger. Like you said, coming in July, this stuff might be out to lever different bases. So start small, scale fast, and innovate one cup at a time.